Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation. It is time for another Warhammer 40K battle report. This time, the DeathWatch that Lane will be bringing will be facing the Orcs. That's right, the Dread Mobb returns for the first time in Pariah Nexus, 10.5 as some people like to call it. But it is time for us to bring the Dread Mobb back to the table with all the changes that Orcs have seen, mostly for the knobs, the Mega Knobs specifically. I had to make some tweaks to the list. Now, we are still in the process of getting this thing to look pretty. Lane was nice enough to bring me some Orcs out of his collection, so we got a little bit better looking, but for the most part, there's been some other projects working on. So the Orcs have been sitting for a minute, but we are going to get back on them very, very shortly, especially after you see what I've been working on and trying to get cleaned up here on the channel. All right. So, before we jump into all that Warhammer stuff, guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Turn on the bell to get notified on all the content that we bring you here on the channel, including the upcoming battle report between the Orcs and the DeathWatch. Now, here we go, Dread Mobb. So, I am a big fan of the Dread Mobb. I like robots, whether they're skeletons, the AdMech robots, Dread Knights. I like me some robots. So, of course, with the Orcs, if I'm going to play Orcs, Dread Mobb is the way to go. So the Dread Mobb, as we know, if you don't know, I should say, is a detachment that focuses on walkers, grot vehicles, which are the artillery pieces of the Orc army, the walkers, which is the Death Dread, the Killicans, and the Gorgon Morkanot, as well as mech units. Those units, whenever I make an attack with them, I get to roll a dice. On a 1 or 2, I get sustained hits. On a 3 or 4, lethal hits. And on a 5 or 6, you get additional AP for 6s to wound. I may have the lethal and sustained mixed up, so I do apologize. But basically, for all intents and purposes, you roll that dice. Now, alternatively, you can select one of those abilities, but then all the weapons in that unit gain hazardous. Now, this is the only army that does this, but if you end up having multiple hazardous effects, then you get an additional modifier that now you trigger damage to yourself on a 1 or 2 instead of just a 1. It doesn't go up further than that, but if you do have that additional hazardous hit, that's going to hurt. You're going to take some more damage. So you can really push and really do a lot of damage with this army in units, but you could end up also doing a lot of damage to yourself. In Magic the Gathering, there was a term with it, which was a lot of black decks that would play by, that would use your life as a resource. So I feel like a lot of ways this Orc army plays in a very similar fashion. My first throwing of it, I did too much damage to myself. Later throwings of it, I did much, much better with not pushing myself as heavy on the damage chart. So that's going to be the way that I'm going to run with this, is I'm not going to go too deep into just hazardous hits on everything. But it's nice to know that I can get a little more reliable if need be, and it's there. Now, with that being said, I talked a little bit about this, and I want to let you guys know. So what we're working here on the channel and what's going on. I've been, since I've played my Necrons for a very long time, I've been very upset with how the bases have looked. I haven't really been happy with how they looked, and I wanted to get them a little bit further. And Lane and some others pushed me to try something with the bases, and I like it a lot. So I've been really churning them out to get them ready for tournaments, so I have them ready competitively. So the Orcs have kind of taken a little bit of a side seat. I'm nearing completion on my current Necron build. And once that's finished, I'm going to be jumping back over to the Orcs. Now, as I said originally, Lane does have some Orcs in his collection that were painted up, so I was able to get some models over here. So please do forgive me that we still haven't moved very far with the Orcs, but you'll see some progress being made. I do have some commission work I'm doing for somebody, and then when I finish that, I'll be getting an additional to finish off. It's the last cans that I need to finish off and getting those situated. So the army looks a little ugly for right now, but there is a lot of steps in the works. So this should be the last time that I play this thing without getting, I want to say it's the last time I'll play this thing without getting cleaned up. But there's an RTT on the 20th. Once again, Battlegrounds board games heading out there. And I may be taking this out there because I want to have some fun. And man, there's nothing than the look across the table when I go, okay, here is 18 kilocans. All right, on that note, let's take a look at this list so we can talk about that a little bit more. And the fact there is 18 kilocans in this list. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, let's get ready to wah. That's right. Here it is. The Orcs and the Dread Mob. Like I said, the Dread Mob has the ability to boost any attacks that it makes on a random dice roll for looking for sustained, lethal, or additional AP, or I can select it, giving me hazardous. The stratagems with this army also reflect that by having 2 tiers on a majority of them, where they can either do a basic ability for, re-rolling hit rolls of 1, or go full re-rolls to hit, but then give all my weapons hazardous. So this army can shell out some damage to my opponent and to itself. All right, so let's talk about the players in this show. First and foremost, let's go with the tag team champions, Gork and Mork. Now, I know that some people might say, why? Why Gork? Why Mork? Why not just the Morkanaut? Because I know a lot of people like the Morkanaut. The Morkanaut being able to access some higher damage weaponry, per se, with some of the D6 on the zap cannons and things like that, and that's why he's here. But what I like about the Gorkanaut is the Gorkanaut's ability to just be a freight train. This guy can go gunning at an objective marker with its Gatling cannon, not needing as much support. This thing can just push right into something. It also has a lot more effective damage in combat, a lot more attacks per se, and a higher strength. And again, that Gatling gun is awesome. Be it triggering into sustained or lethal is very, very strong. Now, the Morkanaut does hit a lot harder and usually lasts into the later points of the game, and I do like that for it, but again, the Gorkanaut does better on the front line. So by putting one of the big guys forward and having the other big guy back, they work nicely with each other, and it's really nice to be able to have Gork and Mork. As you can tell, I have put some work into these guys. I got some more detail work to do with these, but I like the yellow. I'm going to, bring out the skulls on the front on their bellies, do some work to the weapons and stuff like that. But all in all, we're making some progress on Gork and Mork here. So they're going to start looking better and better over time. We did some airbrush work on them and just did some fun stuff to them. Made the Gorkanaut really look battle damaged and got the Morkanaut just to have a little bit of extra effects. So we'll continue working on these guys and moving them forward. These guys are relatively cheap for their bulk and their size, so I like them. I like them a lot, and they fit with the army. Now, a big part about with these two guys is going to be, and we're going to move over to these characters to talk about it, we are going to take 2 individual mechs. Now, in the army, we have 3 mechs in total, but here are the 2 walking mechs. So these mechs will both be Killsaw and Mega Blasta. These guys are probably going to be hanging around behind the Gork and the Morkanaut. Now, one thing with this new edition or new season is the ability to have things that can do actions. Now, previous, we used to have units that would just be, a little 5-man with maybe assault weapons that could advance, do an action, and then die. Quick little units like that. I feel, and this is going to be something that I testify a lot for in this, is having characters that you don't really need them to shoot, just having abilities, and also lone op in some way, shape, or form are going to be huge value. So having 2 mechs that have the ability to be lone op near vehicles, with how many vehicles I have, means that these guys can perform actions and probably finish them off, even actions that require me to make it all the way to my opponent's next turn, without shutting down a lot of what my army's trying to do elsewhere. So having these 2 mechs wandering around the field, I think, will be very nice. They'll be able to give the boost to the Mork and Gorkanaut to be able to give them +1 to hit, as well as repairing them. Now, they can also do this to other vehicles in the army, specifically the truck, which we'll talk about in a minute. But when it does it to the cans, it is only a single vehicle model, so it's not as effective, but still healing a can can be nice here and there. So they're primarily going to be sticking around by the Gork and Morkanaut and completing actions. Since we talked about them, let's go over to the kilocans. Yes, we have 18 kilocans. 6 of these will be Scorchos. I really love the flamethrower option on these guys. They have just putting out so many shots. A good center unit, a good unit to move up the middle and really be a distraction. And if left uncontested, can just absolutely incinerate something right in the middle of the field. The other 2 squads of 6 are going to have rockets. Now, if you wonder what's the deal with the cans. So first of all, with the changes to bring it down, each unit is only worth a maximum of 6 points. But here's the positive part of it. In order to get that 6 points, you have to completely eliminate the unit. So if one can survives and wanders away, that means 0 points for bring it down. The rockets are flat 3 damage. D3 shots per guy, but they do have blast, so it helps out into the infantry style matchups where I'm able to put more shots into them. And then the grots themselves, these guys are hit on 4s. So better, a little bit better than what we usually see. All in all, love these guys. They're tough, they're mean, they're trash cans with legs. They're super cool. I love my kilocans. And we're bringing 18 of them to the forefront. So, and yeah, they will be, since they are vehicles and they are walkers, they get all the special abilities that come from the Dread Mob. Next up, let's talk grots. So one of the things that's interesting with this detachment is that I can take grots, Gretchen specifically, as battle line units. So with the buffs that we have to battle line units, the Gretchen will be able to get this as well. Now, some of them are not necessarily that great. Being able to shoot with a Gretchen unit and complete an action, I mean, they're not really doing that much damage as it is. But there are some other stuff that helps for the battle line units that might help with these guys. We have 30 of them, 3 10-man squads, 2 of which are going to go in the Gork and Morkanaut, because if you didn't know, that thing does have transport capacity. So those guys are going to go inside of that so that they can get kind of just carried up the field, while 1 will probably stay and just hold the home field objective. On top of that, these guys, their inherent ability is to give me command points. If I control the objective marker in my command phase, roll a dice, and I can generate CP. Now, you can only generate 1, but it's just more dice that I get towards that chance for each Gretchen squad on an objective marker. So really nice, really good little battle line unit. Very, very cheap. Previous, I had 4 squads. I dropped 1 squad down and made some tweaks, especially with some of the changes with the Mega Knobs. And now let's get over into one of the big tests, one of the big things I'm most excited about, our truck and what we're bringing in it. So we have our truck. Lane brought me a truck. When we get ours, we do have a wrecking ball equipped to it. You know, it's not here on the model, but we do have a wrecking ball because it was great for the tank shock. It's free. It can still do damage. Now it's not as relevant, but hey, it's still an extra attack, and it's free. Otherwise, inside, we are going to have, first and foremost, our Mek and Mega Armor. He's still here, and he is going to be leading 2 Mega Knobs. He will have his Grot Rigger so that he can heal the squad, and then his own inherent ability to put back a dead model, assuming that it's only 1 that's dead. He also gives the squad a 4-up invuln. These 2 Mega Knobs are going to have 2 kill saws. So that means they will be twin-linked. Less attacks, but they are twin-linked, which will be very, very nice to make sure that we're getting that damage through when we hit. Now, you can take Mega Knobs in a 2-man squad. You can take them this small. So when these guys get out of the truck, they're going to be just able to rush up, just be a distraction, be tough, be bulky. And then when we WA, they have the 5-up Feel No Pain, not the 4-up. The Mega Knobs went up in points significantly, so that's one of the reasons that I reduced it down. But still having this little 3-man squad is a nice unit to just be able to punch, finish something off, and draw an obnoxious amount of firepower to remove them. Otherwise, they're going to be holding objectives and doing all sorts of silly stuff. But again, 4-up invuln is still very nice. As well, with the capacity of the truck, we will also be bringing another mech who will be leading a squad of Tank Bustas. Now, Tank Bustas are one of my, right up there with Kilocans. Like, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of orcs. It's not my play style. I like the robots though. And on top of liking robots, I also loved the tank bustas. I don't know why, these guys were always super cool. So the tank bustas come with 3 rockets, Ed Knob with a rocket and 2 additional, 1 guy with rocket pistols, so only 12-inch range there, and then a tank hammer, which is hilarious because this is a hazardous weapon that on top of being hazardous has devastating wounds, anti-vehicle, anti-monster 4-up. So it's just a silly, silly hammer. It is hilarious. I love it, the damage that that thing can do. These guys also have 2 bomb squigs with them. So the squigs are not actually models, they're more markers. You target a unit within 12, you roll a dice, and the squig goes out there and possibly does mortal wounds to the unit that it's hitting. Since they're led by a mech, they will count as a mech unit, so they will be able to get the same buffs from my detachment for being able to have sustained or all that other stuff. Now, what's nice about this is that that means that this squad will, since the truck has firing deck, these guys can shoot from the truck. So if a mech buffs the truck for +1 to hit, these guys will have +1 to hit. Regardless of their own inherent ability to go +1 to hit, +1 to wound, versus monsters, creatures, and vehicles, that ability will only take place when they're on the field, but it's still very strong. Now, and again, with the mech giving them that buff. And the mech and its custom Mega Blast is also a nice little good added buff for some extra damage. These guys can do a lot of damage. So with that truck being able to move into a position, tank busters can get out and really hit something hard, and then the kill saws on the Mega Knobs can finish it off. At the same time, if the Mega Knobs just want to go tie up some infantry that can't handle them, the tank busters can just blast into something and just absolutely eliminate it. This squad can put down a lot of firepower, and I'm looking forward to really seeing them on the field and what I can make happen with them. They've always been a unit that I've really liked. They are quite expensive at 100 points for the unit, so that is kind of a little rough for 5 little orc dudes. So I am hoping that they do the damage and can really make things happen on the battlefield. All right, so there's the list. There's a lot of little tricky tech that I can do with some of the stuff. We have the incinerators, the truck, the tank busters, and the Mega Knobs, all to be able to function at center field and hold center field. If I feel like I can't hold center, those units can break off and take flanks pretty easily, where the flanks are going to be more populated by my Mork and Gorkanaut and my Killicans. That's typically where the separation is going to be. Now, the objective marker that's closest to my deployment zone of the 3 in No Man's Land is usually where the Morkanaut will go, be it that it has the range and the higher damage. The Gorkanaut's the one that goes more into the forefront. So that might be a way that the tank busters in the truck shimmy off that way if I don't feel like I can hold center. The Scorcha Killicans will probably still have to focus on center. It may be at that point just holding and slowing stuff down so it funnels into me, so it doesn't just come in and crash into my home deployment zone. But if that's the way it goes, that's the way it goes. I may lose my home deployment zone, but then be able to crash into my opponents and take that away. It's going to be tough to figure out what I want to do with this army. Initially, I feel like Cleanse is a very, very good place to go in doing fixed secondaries, and that's something I'm really considering with this list. Now, oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot one entire unit. Let's flash them up here real quick. I'm thinking about it right now because I'm thinking about secondaries. We do still have 5 Storm Boys in the list. Yeah, I totally forgot about these guys. They're 65 points for jump infantry. They're amazing. Their damage output, who cares? Who cares? 65 points for jump infantry. These guys can land, they can complete secondaries and a lot of stuff like that and allow me to play still tactical if I don't want to go over to fix. But fix does look pretty tasty with this army, as I can then just go into things like Cleanse and have my Meks cleanse an objective, be able to cleanse with little things like that, or you know, some of the other ones depending on the lists and what I'm facing from my opponents. So that's some things I need to think about with it, and look at those fixed secondaries and see, because this is where I'm starting to kind of lean with this orc army, is going more towards fixed, but I'm still built to be able to handle the tactical, especially with the Storm Boys. A big thing that Lane and I have been discussing recently, especially with the secondary objectives, is that there's only 4 objectives that really score points based on your opponent's deployment zone. And of those 4, 3 have an alternative mode that you can score by no man's land, center of the table, and stuff like that. So realistically, out of all of the missions, there is only 1 secondary that can only be scored from your opponent's deployment zone, and that's behind enemy lines. So there's a ways around that. So it's still not too bad to go into that tactical play and your opponent not really fully know and go, okay, this is what I'm going to need to do, and this is the things I'm going to have happen. But I'm a big advocate around cleanse. I like cleanse a lot because even though it's an action-based secondary, it's doing what we're supposed. It's playing 40K, and if you build into that, like I said with the Meks, and being able to just, okay, I'm going to buff this vehicle and then cleanse this objective, that's stuff that can still really work out. Now, the Meks are squishy, so you get into them, you hit them, they die. But we have things like the walls of killer cans and stuff like that that might make it tough to get to those Meks while they're sitting back there cleansing that objective for a couple of turns. So it's something I have to think about, something to mull over, and we'll see at game time if I decide to go fixed or just stay on the tactical, what I'm comfortable with, and we'll see. We'll definitely see. All right, guys. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.